This could be the superfood that saves your life during the next crisis. It's probably the most nutritious food on Earth that requires absolutely no refrigeration. This superfood was invented during the Cold War in order to survive a possible nuclear attack. America needed a new kind of bunker food. The requirements were daunting. This new superfood had to be extremely nutritious, incredibly cheap, easily reproducible on a massive scale, and long-lasting without refrigeration. After 5.5 years and hundreds of failed experiments, one military scientist finally cracked the food code. It was called the Doomsday Ration, and its recipe was kept secret for decades. With it, you could keep an adult well-fed for just 37 cents a day. Our government ended up stockpiling huge amounts of Doomsday Ration in shelters all across the country for a war that never came. But this food didn't spoil, and it was eventually put to good use. Over 150,000 tons worth of Doomsday Rations were unearthed and sent for emergency relief all over the world. Even today, more than 60 years later, full boxes are being discovered from time to time. They're still completely edible.
They still look fine!
Oh my god.
They taste like matzos!
Really?
Yeah, they're good!
But this is just one of the 126 survival foods that you can find in the Lost Superfoods. In this book, you will discover not just the recipes, but full instructions with pictures, as well as long-term storage and nutritional values. Today, I would like to share with you the one ingredient you need to make your own Doomsday Rations, but also some other powerful lost foods that you will find in this book. But first, let me tell you why you should even listen to me in the first place. Hi, my name is Claude Davis. You may already know me from my preparedness website, Ask a Prepper, or one of my survival books. I'm not what people would call a doomsday prepper. I do prepare for an uncertain future, but I like to do it the way our grandparents did back in the day. People were a lot more self-reliant then. They filtered rainwater in wooden barrels, had dozens of long-lasting foods put away in their pantries and larders, and grew their own natural medicines at home. They also knew and did many other things, which we've since forgotten in our world of convenience where everything is just a click away. One of the things I realized over the years is just how vulnerable we've all become compared to our grandparents' generation. Let me explain. The most important and valuable thing in life is our time. It's our only real currency. We spend time at work and get paid for it. When you go buy a new car or a sofa, you pay with the number of hours you work to get the money you need. For any of the goods we possess right now, we paid with tiny bits of our lives. The shirt on your back, your TV, the device you're watching the short video on. Money is nothing but valuable pieces of your time that you pay for the final goods you really need, like food, for example. But during the book, he also knew that a wise man always put something away in times of plenty. Before the war, Leningrad was a lively city with a bustling economy. Food was both cheap and readily available on every corner, more or less like we're experiencing right now. So, Boris, not a rich man by any means, was able to turn a small part of his tiny state pension into something more tangible. His neighbors used to mock the old fool behind his back as he haggled for a better price at the market. But despite that, Boris went on to purchase food items and, over the years, built an impressive stash. As the city turned wretched and money became useless, people started trading boxes full of jewelry, gold watches, and expensive fur coats for just small pieces of bread, sometimes not even enough for a single meal. In contrast, Fat Boris, as he became known, did quite well for himself during the 3-year famine. He claimed over 500,000 lives. He was actually pretty thin, and only got that nickname because his well-fed body stood in stark contrast with the starving people flowing through the streets of Leningrad. He even helped others nurse themselves back to health. Food was often the best and only medicine needed. The story of Fat Boris is not unique or rare. In starvation-stricken Leningrad and throughout other crises, like the Great Depression, you can always find a few others like him. Prudent, wise folk who, by stockpiling the right foods at the right time, were able to survive and help their families do the same. Many others starved, probably still waiting for government help to arrive. The best time to put food aside is now, before something bad happens. If Boris had waited until the danger was near, he would have had nothing left to stockpile or barter with later on. He would have been no better off than the rest of his starving neighbors, just as we won't be if we decide to wait until the last minute. There will rarely be any warning signs. Do you think people knew the stock market would crash even a day before it did in 1929, ushering in a 10-year economic depression? Of course they didn't. Chances are we won't see the next crisis before it hits us either. And when things go really bad, or even during a local disaster like a hurricane, one of the first things to vanish or become prohibitively expensive is food. So you need to stockpile it beforehand. And it has to be the right kind of food, nutrient-rich and long-lasting without refrigeration. That's because in no decent crisis did people suffer from hunger but still have electricity left. I know it's hard to believe, but the best survival foods still come from a time when refrigerators were a distant dream. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's been done before, and so much better too. And don't rush out and sink thousands of dollars into a freeze dryer just yet. And don't stock up on emergency food buckets, even if you find them on sale. They're nothing but a clever scam that gives you around 1,200 calories a day, about as much as some prisoners got at Auschwitz. They contain barely any fat, vitamins, or the protein your body requires to stay healthy and strong. Please don't go out and buy a pantry full of MREs either, called the Lost Superfoods. And it contains all the lost superfoods that have saved countless lives throughout human history, from the age of the pharaohs up through the age of exploration and the pioneers until the end of the Cold War, all with complete recipes and color pictures for every step of the way to help you make and add them to your survival pantry. These are the most nutrient-rich and inexpensive foods you can make at home, with a shelf life of anywhere between 3 years and a few decades, even without refrigeration. So without further ado, here are just some of the foods you'll discover inside the Lost Superfoods. First, you'll discover how to make your own U.S. secret military superfood at home, and the one ingredient that is vital for the doomsday ration, and many other long-lasting superfoods as well. That ingredient is bulgur. Modern scientists discovered what the ancients already knew. Bulgur is a perfect food in terms of nutrients, taste, and most importantly, shelf life. In fact, edible bulgur has been found inside Egyptian pyramids after more than 3,000 years. The doomsday ration might have cost millions to invent, but it's super cheap to make or replicate. Once you've made your first batch, get ready to forget about it, because this superfood will never spoil, even in the harshest conditions and even without refrigeration. You'll always be able to keep your entire family well fed just by spending a few dollars each day. Plus, it's also lightweight enough that it belongs in your bug-out bag too. Next, you'll discover one of the foods that kept Fat Boris and others well fed while famine gripped the city around them. It's a forgotten European dish that comes from a time when people had to get creative about preserving their food. To make it, Boris used cow feet, which he could afford, but you can use any type of fresh meat you like. The cheaper, the better. In the end, you'll have a scrumptious meal that requires no refrigeration for months and even years in some conditions. Pure protein and saturated fat will keep you going as others wither away on grass and roots. I'll also show you another superfood that will give you all the healthy and vital fats your body needs in a crisis without needing any refrigeration to keep good for at least 1 year. Rich in butyric acid. It will also help with absorbing the maximum amount of nutrition from any other food by healing and protecting your gut lining. This will help you stretch any food stockpile you have for twice as long. You'll also find out how to use this lost superfood to turn a simple bag of potatoes into one of the most nutritious and inexpensive crisis meals ever to touch your taste buds. This one saved an entire village of Swedish farmers in 1869, when heavy avalanches blocked off their only road down from the mountains for months. The next superfood you'll discover kept America from starving during the height of the Great Depression. It's also probably the best tasting survival food you'll ever run across. It lasts for about 2 years without refrigeration, and the lard is kept in can also be used for cooking, for making soap, for treating burns, or as an added fat source whenever you need it. You'll also discover a type of long-lasting bread developed by the Cree tribe of Canada. when faced with starvation after the buffalo were hunted to the brink of extinction. All you need are 4 very common ingredients and maybe half an hour of your time. Plus, the way it's cooked will surely make you smile. Think back on your own childhood. This bread is all you need to get energy-boosting carbs into your crisis diet. I'll also reveal the one food that saved more American lives during our Civil War than any other. Surprisingly, it's not hardtack, but it's probably just as long-lasting. This food uses something most people throw away. It's something they never even think of as real food to begin with, but you will. And I promise you'll profit a great deal from it in any disaster that empties the stores. You'll also find out how you can preserve almost any kind of cheese at room temperature. It's no secret that cheese has been around for a long time, a lot longer than refrigeration. But it was the Dutch of Alkmaar in the 14th century who invented the best way to store cheese in the pantry for more than 2 whole years. You'll also discover the superfood that helped the Mongol hordes of Genghis Khan march all the way to the gates of Vienna. Besides preventing nutrient deficiencies, this food is also the best natural probiotic you can get, one that will counteract eating processed food like MREs. This raw superfood was also adopted by the Royal British Navy at the end of the 17th century and has prevented countless deaths from scurvy since that time. Next, I'll show you a simple yet ingenious system that can allow anyone to put away more than 295 pounds of good food each year while spending no more than $5 a week. It's especially useful if you've been struggling to find the money to put into a long-term food stockpile. You will also get the recipe for a coated meat that fueled the conquest of the Ottoman Empire for centuries and prevented them from starving even when the scorched earth strategy was deployed against them. You can't afford not to have this one in the pantry before the next crisis. I'll also show you how to make fermented soup people from Turkey used to survive when crops failed for 3 years in a row. This food is called tarhana, and unlike any regular soup, it will stay good for years on your shelf as the fermentation process kills all dangerous bacteria. It's also a great source for almost every one of the essential B vitamins. You'll also find out how to make your own ninja superfood. This one kept elite assassins well fed on their month-long covert missions when fresh food and even drinking water was hard to come by. Extremely few people in the world still know the recipe, and I had to beg and bribe an old Japanese fisherman in Okinawa to share it with me. Once he did, I was surprised to discover that every ingredient needed can easily be procured in America as well. I'll also show you how to make the portable soup that saved Lewis and Clark on their iconic 2-year expedition across uncharted U.S. territory. This weird-looking soup is no gourmet meal, but it will last for ages just by sitting in your coat pocket, no matter how hot it gets outside. You'll also discover the Viking superfood that doesn't spoil but only gets better with age, like wine. This is what the first Viking explorers ate when they crossed the Atlantic and discovered North America almost 500 years ahead of Christopher Columbus. The people of Norway still use this old recipe to keep all kinds of fish good for up to 3 years. I'll also show you why as long as you can peel the bark off this tree, you'll never have to fear starvation. And the best part is it grows on almost every street in America. Next, I'll give you the recipe for the survival food that saved the Europeans during the Dark Ages, as the Black Plague was ravaging the countryside. Many are thought to have survived because the vital nutrients in this complete food fortified their bodies against disease. Later, it nourished kings, children in Victorian workhouses, and even the Confederate General Richard S. Ewell, who ate it at almost every meal. All the ingredients needed to make it, such as dried wheat berries, will last for a very long time in your pantry or cellar. They are also ignored by practically everybody else. So if you ever, God forbid, lose your entire stockpile, you can be sure you'll have at least this one superfood left. You'll also see how the Brits ingredients, along with the canned tuna, because almost nobody owned a refrigerator back then. It will fill your belly and it's a snap to prepare. The next thing you'll find out about is not food. It's what to do with all your food once the power goes out. Many Americans are throwing away hundreds of pounds of meat and other life-saving meals during blackouts because they don't know what you'll discover on page 291 of the Lost Superfoods. You'll also discover how to make fruit leather, a long-lasting solution for keeping all your fruits from spoiling, which they tend to do in a hurry, especially when left outside the fridge. This will keep them good for months on end, and nobody will even suspect it's real food. Only you will know. I'll also give you the recipe for my delicious dehydrated marinara sauce that brings intense flavor to even the most boring of dishes. This one, brewing superfoods that almost nobody knows about, the ins and outs of canning both vegetables and meat safely for 20 years, how to prevent your foods from going rancid, 7 deadly canning mistakes to avoid, like the plague, how to make yourself a $20 DIY food bucket better than anything on the market today, the best 50 superfoods to dehydrate for your food stockpile, how to extract every last nutrient out of every meal, and many other survival superfoods and lost methods for preserving them for years on end. And even all of that is but a small taste of what you'll find inside this book. The 382 pages of the Lost Superfoods hold the survival foods that kept previous generations alive through the worst of times. These superfoods are a must-have for anybody who's serious about protecting their loved ones from famine and disease when things turn ugly in America and there's no food left anywhere. And there's even more, because if you act right now, before this